You are at war with yourself and likely don't realize it. Your thoughts, beliefs, habits, and actions often sabotage you. Are they helping you overcome adversity or setting you up for failure? To win this battle, you must connect with your inner warrior. We all have a warrior within us, one that strengthens our resolve and helps us to rise to meet life's challenges. If you're just surviving rather than thriving, then it's time to embrace the warrior archetype, live the warrior ethos, and ascend. If you are a veteran, first responder, or someone looking to take charge of your life, find your tribe, and then be the hero of your own story, this podcast is for you. Join Mike Kinney and Matt Hastings, two retired U.S. Army officers who served in U.S. Army Special Operations and Army Aviation units, as they share with you optimal performance practices they learned in their time with the Military and Warriors Ascent, a 501c3 nonprofit that helps veterans and warriors with PTS.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Warriors Ascent podcast with your hosts, Mike and Matt. So we are on episode 8, self-efficacy, algorithms, systems, habits, rituals, all of that. So it'll be kind of interesting. So let me ask, have you ever wondered how it is that some people can exercise such a high degree of willpower and discipline while others cannot? It seems like almost like an innate ability, right?
Yeah.
Like you either have it or you don't. When in fact, that's not really necessarily the case. Would you find it surprising if I told you that it is somewhat related to the reason that Steve Jobs wore the same outfit, that iconic black turtleneck, every day, right? Believe it or not.
I didn't know he had a reason behind that.
Yes. So it's the concept of ego depletion and decision fatigue, right? So they would say that he just didn't want to have to be bothered every day deciding what it was that he was going to wear,
Wow.
you know, I'm sure to keep up appearances. I'm sure there was so much to that.
That was kind of
I'm certain he didn't want to look like a slob, but I'm sure he didn't want to waste the time and mental energy of going, okay, what am I going to wear today so that I can keep up appearances? It was just very simple. I'm going to wear the same stuff. And that way I can expend my mental energy on the things that are important to me, running Apple.
Man, I saw that in the military. I didn't have to choose what to wear either. I kind of like that. That way, all this big brain of mine could be used towards,
That's right, because you didn't have to worry about what you were wearing.
Terrorism issues, right?
Because the big army, Uncle Sam, decided that for you.
At first, I just had to remember which side to put my name and which side to put U.S. Army, and that was the hard part. But your name is always right.
That's right. That's right. That's just, it was the same thing at West Point. I mean, I remember when I was getting ready to graduate, they had the cadet store, that had real civilian clothes and stuff. Going to the lady and saying, "Hey, can you kind of mentor me
on what to wear?"
Because I've been wearing a uniform now, for so long, and I'm about to embark on this career, and I need to know what proper say. And I remember she said to me, she says, those concert t-shirts that you all like? I'm like Metallica? She's like, yeah. She goes, you know what those are good for? I was like, oh, washing your car.
Washing your car.
Don't ever wear them. No, but she gave me all sorts of rules of thumb. But no, there's something to be said about it. That man, and not to be like a mindless drone or slave, but when you're not having to worry about that, when you're not trying to, impress and keep up with, everyone else, when it's like, hey, you're all wearing the same thing. Anyway, not to go on and on about that, but decision fatigue. So in terms of algorithms, systems, habits, and rituals, how does that play into decision fatigue and willpower and discipline, right? Well, there's a fella named Roy Baumeister. He wrote the book on willpower titled,
let me guess, Willpower.
There you go. So he actually wrote the book on willpower, right? And in that, and I mean, I read this thing way back, but in essence, what I remember of it is this notion that willpower is almost like a muscle, right? You can deplete it. It's not the case that you either have it or that you don't, or that some people are born with just inexhaustible levels of willpower. That's not the case at all. And what they've come to find is that people that seem to have a high degree of discipline and willpower have actually created systems and processes and rituals. They've set the conditions for that, such that in the case of Steve Jobs, they're not exhausting their store of willpower on stupid things like, what am I going to wear today? They've set those conditions. Yeah. So it said willpower versus discipline. I'll credit, Jocko Willink, the SEAL.
Yeah.
He goes on to say that if you're depending on willpower and motivation, right? Motivation, like, well, hey, let me tap into my motivation to work out. Your motivation will fail you because we'll say your motivation is, we'll say, somewhat loosely tied to that willpower, right? Whereas if you've got that discipline, you've got those rituals, those algorithms, those systems that you're like, this is just what I do. Whether I want to or not, I've made the commitment. I will follow the algorithm. I will follow the ritual and the system, and I will do that. That is a much better way of assuring that you're going to do what needs to be done. And that's what the power of the algorithms, systems.
And those people seem like superhumans, but there is tools and trade craft to get there.
Right. So. You get the Gogginses of the world, no, clearly, I mean, there's some people with the spark, and we talked about this, earlier today. There's a point at which you've got those incremental wins where you're chalking up those successes and you're proving to yourself in your mind. And there's definitely a mental component to that no, I can honor the commitments to myself, right? And and I've shown myself that I can live up to that and I can achieve certain things. And that is truly the self-efficacy that we spoke of. But then there's a point at which, you get to the point where you've just done it for so long that it transcends just the ritual. Right. It transcends the whole sense of self-efficacy. It becomes like your self-image and identity. Yeah. It becomes this notion of, no, this is what I do. And I think I've mentioned that Lanny Basham book with Winning in Mind, where he was the rifle shooter, where he's shooting, and rather than, if he misses a shot, rather than beat himself up, he would just be like, needs work, let it go, needs work. But then when he hit the bull, right, then he's like, that's not like, oh, thank God. No, that's like me. That's what he would say. That's like me. It's just reinforcing that, nope, that's what I do. I shoot bullseyes all day long, right? And if he misses, oops, needs work. That's pretty cool. That's the difference.
Mind trick, or good way to talk to yourself.
Mm-hmm. So setting the conditions for success, right? So why have a system or ritual, right? Ego depletion, right? And decision fatigue. That's why. Because if you look at willpower as a muscle, right, it's something that can be depleted. It's those systems, those rituals that safeguard against that, by and large. And you're always, you don't have an inexhaustible source of that. But getting back to decision fatigue, when you make it an option, should I or shouldn't I? There it is, then you're like, all right, yes, no. And it just wears on you versus, nope, that's what I do. And we talked about the PT ritual. What is your PT ritual? How is it that you ensure that you're doing your physical training in the morning?
That's kind of an interesting one. The reason I do it is I hire a guy. I hire a trainer and I make a schedule with him, and I got to be there. Or one, I'm going to be embarrassed because the trainer's going to be there and I'm not. It's going to cost me money and I'm not going to be there. And that's stupid. So it's just a way for me, those are things that I just would never, if I have an appointment, I would never miss it. That's what I do. And so that's my discipline. This guy, the reason I'm disciplined towards him is we talk about discipline versus motivation. And I see this young guy, 20 years old, and he can lift everything in his body. He's just building his body. And it's like, it's become who he is, and he's studying it. He's studying the physics, and he comes in and he's teaching me everything, exactly why this ligament moves that muscle over here. And if this isolation here, and I mean, I can see him becoming this, food, The one day we had him for dinner, said, "Hey, do you want some dessert?" And he's like, "Does this look like I eat dessert?" And I was like, "No, it does not look like you eat dessert."
Turbo body softener, right?
It's these kind of disciplinary things. And I like how you said it. It's just like, it's not something I want to do. It's not something I talk about doing. It's who I am. It's what I do. So, I mean, in the physical training ways, like one of the big rituals I did as a helicopter driver was I called it building my nest. As soon as I would get in, whichever side, it was a big deal to sit in the left seat or the right seat. Just depended on what was going on. I would stay disciplined, and if I was in the left seat last time, I'd move to the right seat the next time, and I just went back and forth. But that's because things were in different spots. Like if I wanted system one to take over and I needed something in the right seat, I need it with my left hand. If I'm in the other seat, I need it with my right hand. So I needed to be equally fast, equally be able to pick both hands from both sides. But so when I would sit in the aircraft and, I'd have a knee board here and, some maps on this leg strapped down. And then I've got this kind of a flashlight going over my neck here. And I got night vision goggles up here. And I got some kind of pack back here. And, you've got ammo here. And you've just got everything where you don't have to think. And it's just so that if just the slightest thing happens, I just know right where to be, And that, when you're about to face a whirlwind of who knows, to have those kind of pre-done rituals, we talked about system one and training it until it just was second nature. That was what ran my world and allowed me to be efficient and stay up with such a chaotic, fast-paced world.
So there's almost, habits, rituals, algorithms. If this happens, we have this warning light.
Yeah.
We do this. You don't have to think about it. I know we've talked at length about that. I mean, in this instance, in terms of self-efficacy, I would say it speaks to efficiency as well. How quickly would you be able to respond if a warning light came on and then you had to use system 2, deliberate logic and thinking? So, all right, well, what might that mean? Well, it could mean a variety of different things. Let's talk about this, guys. The aircraft would have fallen out of the air by then. Maybe. You just know, boom, here's what it is that we need to do. Bam, bam, bam. So from an efficiency standpoint,
we even took that to, let's say, to crash drills. Like we're in theater in a bad guy land and we crash and we simulate all 4 of us lived. And now we have to get out of this aircraft and leave it quickly. And we can't leave any of our secret material, secret equipment,
crypto and all that.
Yeah, crypto stuff. And it's embedded in our GPSs, our radio. So we had it where, we're on the ground and each person has
thermite.
We don't have thermite, which would be nice, but it's kind of scary to carry on. I don't know. A lot of
troops if that goes off in your helicopter.
Yeah, but we would do like,
you're in some real trouble, man.
You have the crash action. You're going to smash the GPS and these 2 radios. You're over here with this thing, breaking this. Somebody's climbing up top, kicking this one component off the top. And somebody's pulling security, grabbing, 240 hotel machine guns and crew on our individual weapons. And we already know who's in command once we hit the ground. We already know if that person's dead, who's in command next, all the way down to you're the last person kind of a thing. So, I mean, all of that is, and then we rehearse it, and even in our operation centers, they're doing battle drills over
troops in contact,
everything, if an aircraft went down, fallen angel, if the troops are in contact, if we had an attack on the base, all the things. Mm-hmm. And it was so mechanical that they would actually just pull a list. If this happens, come on. And somebody would scream, attention in the dock. And they just start going through this huge checklist so that you couldn't even make a mistake. But what I saw happen when that was going on is a lot of people that would have been panicked, but I have a task and I can't be panicked because I just have this task to do. And it just, it makes the whole environment a lot more calm. And I'm sure it does that to your head too.
No, there's something to be said about that. 'Cause you fall right in on that routine, call it an algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I would imagine there is, a calming effect to that because there's the automaticity associated with that. It's like, I don't want to say you're a non-thinking robot, but at that point, you kind of are. It just takes over. You're not, oh my God, things are going to go
Yeah.
poorly. You're like, boom, execute the checklist, man.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, absolutely. So you talked about system 1 and system 2, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's important as well. So system 1, automatic, I'll say habituated behavior, right? Less, I'll say onerous, right? Less energy depleting, right? So we talk about ego depletion. System 2, Daniel Kahneman, right? So from thinking fast and slow, all system 2, lazy system 2. That's your logic and reasoning. It's the same system you use for solving a system of equations, any variety of things. And every time, I'm doing algebra with the kids, they're like, oh God, this and that. And I have to sit back and kind of remember, okay, yeah, that's right. This is how you do this. It's been a while. And yeah, you've got to think those things through and say, okay, here's how you solve this, this is how these rules apply to whatever it might be. And yeah, it's a little bit onerous. So really bottom line is the more critical systems or activities you can relegate to system 1, where it just becomes a routine or a habit, the easier it is to do, the more efficient it is, and the less energy taxing.
We'll see how good you do teaching that algebra with somebody shooting at you. A little system 2 in a hurry.
That's right. No,
Yeah.
that is exactly it. That wouldn't make for a good day, right? So we talk about if-then implementation intentions in terms of algorithms, right? Pre-commitments and coping. So that, I'll say, relates to cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavior therapy. And I want to say if-then implementation intention, if I'm not mistaken, is Gabriel. I'll say the power of that is making those pre-commitments almost, I'll say almost system 1, if-then, we'll use if-then Boolean logic, right? If this happens, then I'm going to do this, right? So Steve Jobs, if or when I wake up, then I'm going to put on a black turtleneck. Bam, that's it. It's done. He doesn't wake up and go, okay, if I wake up, well, then I've got about 1,000 different things I can do. This is the same thing. And much like the examples that you use, if this red indicator light for engine 1 comes on, this is what I'm going to do. Not, oh my God, I've got a myriad of courses of action and remedial actions that I could take. Let me synthesize too much.
Right.
Too much, especially as you pointed out, under duress, where you're thinking logic. System 2, when faced with a situation like that, you're not going to make prudent decisions. It's too stressful.
Yeah.
You fall back on that, that automatic, that automaticity, that habituated behaviors that you're like, holy cow, this is just what I do in these circumstances. And I'll say to a lesser degree, if in the cognitive behavioral and dialectical behavior therapy context, when they say coping ahead, what they're getting at is when you are recurringly finding yourself in stressful situations, usually individuals, people that trigger you, piss you off, or situations at work, rather than same thing, I'm faced with this and you just fly off the handle, or how do I handle this? If you go in with a pre-commitment or you cope ahead in anticipation of, you're far more likely to have a better outcome. So in terms of self-efficacy, how effectively you handle a situation like that, when you can already preordain, this is what I'm going to do in this situation, you're going to execute much better, which gets back to what we were saying is when you set the conditions for success well ahead of time, that's the better option for you, rather than it be discovery learning again and again and again. So that's real important as well. So that's where we mean whether it's an algorithm, a habit, a ritual, in certain circumstances. And then there are ones where we'll talk about, what your day looks like, your wake up ritual, your shutdown ritual, your bedtime ritual, sleep rituals, and things like that, so that you can really begin to carve out your day. So, that's what I'll say, a masterpiece day.
I had a good example of what happened this weekend. I was luckily invited to a baby shower, and I happily went. I'm just going to say that.
You happily went.
Happily went.
Sweet.
But as we opened the door to this place, there was a lot of people, and I knew none of them. None of them. I knew the one person the reason I was there. And I thought, wow, there's a lot of people in this crowded room. And so I found the back wall, planted my back to it, which is what I do when I find myself in those situations. I'm usually pretty good, but sometimes I have to view the room for a while, maybe breathe for a minute and kind of get things under control before I feel all right in a room like that. And as I was standing there, this guy sitting next to me. And then we started thinking, it's like, this guy was doing the same thing I was doing. And I'm like, hey, man, how you doing? Are you scoping the room out, putting your head? He's like, yeah, I'm sorry, man, I'm a veteran. And I was like, so we started talking, and it was hilarious. We were both doing, and so he goes, I call this coping ahead. He told me that. And I was like, well, that's awesome. Like talk to me about it. And he goes, well, I just knew that this room was going to be full of people that I probably didn't know. So I was just going to find a wall in the back where I could see everyone. I was like, and then I feel good. And then I said, what if you don't feel good? And he goes, well, I started a breathing technique I use. And I'm like, wow. So this guy had been somewhere in a very similar program, kind of a program. And
Clearly.
But it was kind of neat because I was doing the same thing. He was doing the same thing. And it's a good strategy.
He's well trained.
Yeah, I mean, that was good.
He had all the coping mechanisms all scoped out. That's great.
I feel the need to do that. But again, it's like, once I've done it for a second, I'm good, and then I can move around if I need to or whatever. But it's just my initial place to be, so.
In anticipation of exactly that, entering into a situation like that and going, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. There's so many people. When he's like, no, if I go to this thing and it is just a crush of humanity, then I'm going to find a space on the wall where I can see everybody. And if that's not sufficient, I'm going to do breathing and I'll be good to go. And that's perfect. That is coping ahead or pre-commitments or all of that. That's a great
law enforcement officer that had been to West Coast, place that they had gone to. I don't know. So pretty cool, that it's a strategy that's effective for, it could have been a school teacher. It could have been anybody that could have used that technique.
Yeah, that's good. So I'll borrow a term from my friend Brian Johnson, who runs Optimize and Heroic, masterpiece day. So architecting your day, what does that look like, right? Whether it's daily battle rhythm, as we say in the military, or what have you. But he'll talk about AM and PM bookends. So what does the AM look like for you? What are the rituals, the wake up ritual? PM bookend, when you shut down, what does that look like? What are the rituals that you have so you start your day well, you end your day well? And again, the intent there being is not to be a mindless automaton, right? Mm-hmm. But to have certain rituals, certain habits, certain systems that start the day off on the right foot, that it's not accidental or incidental. And that's the other thing I think people believe is, well, some people are just positive. Some people are just effective. Some people just have great energy. It's this innate ability. They just have it. We all know people that, they've got certain innate abilities. But by and large, what we're trying to get across is a lot of it is created. It's crafted by the systems that people employ. Right? Whether it's intention, attention, and attitude, right? Going into any situation and then having that ritual, like, hey, what is the attitude? I think Oprah, you're responsible for the energy you bring into this room or this situation. Being mindful of that, not just reactive, but I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be energetic. I'm going to be thoughtful. I'm going to be a good listener.
Right.
But having, that ritual or that habit wherein before I enter a threshold or a room, I'm going to go into every situation having in my mind determined what I'm going to do. I think that's important. So, morning rituals. Wake up in the morning. Some people will say that you should be able to script it. I mean, for certainly not every hour of your day, but the rituals that are important to you, the real stage setters, setting the conditions for a good day. So I could say, get up, 6 o'clock, go for a walk, bam, drink my tea, I make tea, bam, green tea usually, boom, come back, meditate 10 minutes out on the deck, boom. After that, I make my coffee with my MCT oil or whatever, boom. After that, interact with the kids. After that, take the kids to school, work out, stretch, do whatever it is. That's pretty much it every day. At night, hey, shutdown complete, no social media beyond a certain time, no blue screens, blue lights, all of that. Work systems, priorities, right? Put them on the calendars. We've mentioned in a previous episode, so that's important. Time blocking, right? To be effective. Same thing. It's like if something's important, if I have a certain objective, to just say, all right, yeah, I'll get to it. No, you got to put a block of time on the calendar. Yep. As a technique, Pomodoro, I believe in Italian, it means tomato. And the reason that's a thing is there was the guy that invented the Pomodoro technique. His timer was like a tomato. It was in the shape of a tomato or something crazy. Regardless, what that's about is saying, hey, for the next 20, 30, 50 minutes, I'm going to commit to this, no distractions. Yeah. Once it's done, I'm going to go and take a 10-minute break. But having those discrete time blocks and a commitment with no distractions is a powerful technique.
Yeah, very powerful.
Yeah, so those are just some, I'll say, effective techniques to get the most out of your day in terms of setting those priorities, allocating time, and then a means of, what does a time block look like? Well, a 50-minute Pomodoro with no distractions. You link a series of those together, 3 or 4 throughout the day, you've been really pretty productive. So work closeout rituals. Hey, answering all your emails, doing whatever, setting the task maybe for the next day so that, like, we get back to the Steve Jobs, so that the first thing in the morning, you're not deciding, what am I going to do today? It's like, no, that's been already pre-decided for you at the close of the business day, right? Shutdown ritual. What that's about is leave work at home and now transition to your family life. And I know sometimes people take their work home with them. I got that. But in as much as you can, healthy boundaries, as our yoga guy, Carrie, says, right? You make that boundary. Work is done, shutdown complete, and now it's dad time or husband time or whatever.
I used to, like, when I was flying late, it was always because I was doing some kind of training on somebody, and you'd be done at 3 a.m. Everybody wanted to leave. It's like, nah, man, we got to sit down. We got to do an after action. Oh, can't we do that in the morning? It's like, nah, I don't know. Like, what if one of us doesn't make it back? No, we're doing it right now because we did it today. This isn't documented, it didn't happen.
That's the system. That's part of your closeout ritual.
Yeah.
Right.
And once it's closed out, then, like, I can quit thinking about it. I can go to bed.
There's something there too. Exactly. Yeah. You've gotten it all out of your mind. You're not, it's not a do out. It's not a hanging Chad.
Right. Hanging Chad, man.
Where you're like, oh man, you're like, no, action complete. I can sleep well because I know I did all the right things.
And it's just another one of those victories, it's like done. Just feels good to add to that list.
Right. Now, so, in closing, right, as we've mentioned, right, algorithms, systems, habits, rituals, system 1, the more automatic you can make it, the better. I'll say implement more of those if you want to streamline your effectiveness, right? Decisions, they fall into the realm of system 2. Not saying don't make decisions, but the more decisions you have to make, understand that ego depletion is a thing and it'll fatigue you. So the more things that you can make automatic, the better. Where necessary, right? Willpower is like a muscle. It fatigues, with exercise. So just kind of think of that. Think of that when you're making a multitude of decisions, right? Implement routines and habits to improve discipline by automating those key activities and really tapping into that system 1. right? So that could be wake up, exercise, a variety of things. Rituals are a good way to set the conditions for success, as we've said. So in terms of self-efficacy, I'm going to say that's the easy button because it's not easy.
No, nothing's easy.
Nothing's easy, right? As Closeout says, right? But
it's better when you can control, when you know you're in control of the things you can control.
Control the control.
And you can't control the things you can't control. And understanding that that's going to happen and plan around that. I mean,
it's equanimity. It's equanimity. It's like control what you can, accept the things that you can't, and then have the wisdom to know the difference between them. Yeah. All right. All right, my brother.
All right. Another good one. Thanks a lot. Out.
Hi, Matt Hastings here, sending a thank you for watching this episode of the Warriors Ascent podcast. You know, we strive to build a community of warriors made up of our nation's veterans and first responders. And to reach as many of those in need as possible, we need your help. Please just smash that like button and comment or share our content. Warriors Ascent is a Kansas City-based nonprofit that aids veterans and first responders with PTS. I went through this effective program and want those that are struggling to find what I found. Check us out on our website at warriorsascent.org.